When I was really little, maybe five or so, my mom had this fear that she would pass away before I grew up. And there was a lot of things that she wanted to tell me. And so she started this note, which now has become a shared note on our phones, called the Good Life Guide. And it's this document of maybe like, I don't know, for up to 200 different nuggets of wisdom that she collects from, people that she hears and she thinks it's really wise and she writes it down, or things that she has come up with. And so the first rule on this list is be a good human, kind of be of service. I had just started my first year of college, really thinking about what do I want to do in life with the AI ethics background of how are we looking after people, individuals. I felt like, okay, Bitcoin is this tool that we have for all 8 billion people, anywhere, anytime, that 365 days a year, 24/7, it's looking after them. It is kind of a tool of service to them. And so I just felt, okay, I don't know exactly what I want to do with my life, but I think Bitcoin represents my values and how I can just live out being a good human and of service. And so this is where I want to put my time and energy.
Hello and welcome back to Bitcoin for Professionals. Today we have Ella Hough. Ella, how are you doing today?
I'm well, Ralph. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for making the time. I know before the recording started, you told me you've had quite the week. And before we get started, I'd like to congratulate you. Lots has happened over the last month. So you just graduated, right? And you also got a job at the same time?
I did. Yes, I graduated from Cornell actually a month ago tomorrow, I think. And then I have been in Kenya working with Gridless, a Bitcoin mining company, and I'm starting with Galaxy in New York City in September.
Amazing. You're like right off the bat knee deep into Bitcoin, it seems.
Well, it's a gift. I think the space allows for that. If you have energy and, kind of go-getter, you can do it. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that.
No doubt. And I mean, graduating from Cornell is no easy feat. So good on you. And being in Kenya is no easy feat as well. I'm sure it's a very different environment than, what you're used to in the West. But it's a pleasure to have you today. Ella, maybe we can start it off, in every Bitcoiner's life, there's a period where they're not a Bitcoiner. And on this show, we like to learn about you pre-Bitcoin. How was that like? What were your interests, your hobbies? And then we'll get to the Bitcoin stuff. But, this is how we show the world that not everyone is a technologist. Not everyone is just, a crazy, hardcore tech Bitcoin type of person. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, happy to. Thank you. So I found Bitcoin when I was in my senior year of high school. And so I think that's kind of an important timeline for a lot of my story because I had just written all of my college applications and everything that I said I wanted to do, not about Bitcoin. It really wasn't top of mind there. I didn't have the appreciation I do now. So I was in high school and I was in this technology innovation and entrepreneurship certificate program. And I began it my second year of high school. And how it's structured is that during your whole time, you take different courses under either the technology, innovation, or entrepreneurship strand. And then your final year of high school, you come together with two other people who did a different strand than you, and you make a capstone project. And so I selected the innovation strand. And one of the courses that was kind of an option to take was called blockchain technologies. And so that was my first real exposure to Bitcoin, blockchain. It was all presented as distributed ledger technology. It kind of went completely over my head because I had a very strong interest in AI ethics. I had spent my junior year, my third year of high school in Beijing. I was doing a school year abroad program, and it actually ended up getting cut short because of COVID. But when I went there, didn't know a single word of Mandarin, didn't even know hello. And I had incredible teachers, lived with a host family. And one of our first classes, our teacher wrote a character on the board for the word filial piety. And the first character that's used is called Xiao, and my tones are terrible. But the important point I'm making is that it visually showed in just the construction of the character the tenet for filial piety of when you're young, your parents will take care of you, but when you grow up, you support your parents. And so this character, how it's written, visually shows this. And I was also taking this other online class about AI, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if in computers, in AI, in kind of anything with a code, you could ethically code a sense of action like you do in spoken, what we typically consider human languages. And so that was where my head was at. That's what I was writing all my college essays about. That's what I was really interested in. But kind of just on my own personal journey outside of school, money and financial security was a topic that I was very much raised being aware of. And, this is something we're going to talk about. And my capstone project that senior year was called Asset. And it was basically, how do we help young people take advantage of their greatest asset, their time, and basically, set themselves up to financially take care of themselves and succeed when they grow up. Because when I was much younger, when I was like 13-ish, I made a comment that I really wanted to be a history major in college. And my parents were like, no, you can't be a history major. You need to get an engineering degree or computer science or something of that nature. And we had this spreadsheet that we made basically showing why, just how expensive it is to live and what it takes to take care of yourself. So all that to say, those are some of the big milestone points before I found Bitcoin that I think primed me to just connect the dots, because I feel like at the end of the day, everyone is a Bitcoiner. We all care about, freedom, liberty, prosperity, human flourishing. But sometimes it's just hard to figure out how all the dots and the message will resonate most with us.
That's fascinating story, and I have to comment. Your parents sound Lebanese, because in Lebanon it's like
Yeah.
no one cares about arts, histories. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's changed over the years, but when I was growing up, it was like you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be an engineer. I ended
Mm-hmm.
up being a banker, sadly, and I had to unlearn a lot of what I spent specializing in and working in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
But so you're quite traveled. So Kenya, Beijing. So did you end up learning Chinese?
I did. I was there. So when we got there, um, we landed really late at night, and then we stayed in a hotel that night. And the next morning, they're like, okay, we're going to walk to school. And then they gave us an address, our teachers, and said, okay, you're on your own. Go figure out how to get there. So, there was no kind of slack time of we're going to help you figure this out. And I had 26 other classmates that I all met on the airplane or in Beijing if they came at different times. And so I could lean on them for a little bit. But that only lasted so long because then we got to school, started class. And we went to school in a Chinese high school, so we got to wear the uniform, same cafeteria. The whole thing was incredible. But they said, okay, in 100 days, you need to give a 5-minute memorized speech. And you can have like a couple note cards, but it's got to be memorized. And all of the host families are going to come, and you're going to present this in front of everyone. And so I had, within 100 days, I could give a 5-minute memorized speech. And then they really encouraged kind of traveling on your own around the country. And I had the most incredible experience. And it's a hard language, but I really like patterns, and it's a very structured kind of pattern oriented language. And I sort of describe it almost like a safe. When you see all the characters at first, like I have no idea what any of this means. Like I can't even see any letters. But a lot of the characters are used repeatedly inside of other characters, and so you can start picking apart meanings, which is very helpful.
Yeah, I tried to learn Chinese using
Yeah,
Duolingo, like everyone
yeah,
does. It was extremely
hmm
difficult. There's so much memorization, and it takes
yeah.
so much time to build the pattern recognition. And
hmm
some of the symbols are very close to each other, and it's like,
Yeah.
but maybe I should give it a shot. But living there, I'm sure, was really helpful. So
Living there is so much easier. Yeah.
I
And
have to.
my host family didn't really speak English that much. And so
Wow.
you're just surrounded by it, and it's much easier when you're there.
Okay, and how was your? Not a lot of people get a chance to live in China or spend time in China. I'm curious about, the culture. Is it as it's portrayed in the traditional media? I'd love to get your thoughts since you spent time there.
I don't think so. So when I was getting ready to go, a lot of people, in some context as to why I decided to, I really want to go to the Naval Academy for college, the service academy in the US. And I just felt going to China, knowing Chinese would be helpful. And also, I just like to do hard things and take advantage of opportunities when they come up. And so I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just going to apply. This doesn't mean I'm going. We'll just see if I even get in. And I went to a boarding school in the US. I loved it. I was really happy there. But I just thought to myself, when else can I go live in China for a year and have, a host family and a built in school community and it's very structured? Let's go and do this. It's going to be, one sleep and two movies and I'll be there. And if it's not good, I can come home. But I went and I lived with a host family. With the grandparents lived with us. I had two host sisters, and I loved it. And about kind of culture similarities, they listen to country music, and I'm from Texas. And so, one day I was just in my room doing homework. I hear country music. Like, this is not coming out of my headphones. The biggest difference was I'm a big coffee drinker and they were not. I would say that was the biggest difference. But my host dad would come home from work and my sisters would, run to the door to greet him. And at the end of the day, humans are not that different around the world. We all, want the same things. And so I had an incredible experience and everyone was beyond kind. And I would go back in a heartbeat if I could.
Amazing. Okay, so Cornell. I know recently you started a Cornell business Bitcoin club.
Mhm.
Uh, was that kind of the first there? Was there any trend? Did you hear people talking about Bitcoin? What inspired you to do that? And what does it do? What does it entail? What happens at that club?
Absolutely. So, my freshman year of college, I ended up going to NYU Shanghai, although it was actually online because this is still in the COVID era and we couldn't actually get to Shanghai in person. But I got to Cornell, and I had transferred. I had tried to get in many times, and then I got the transfer offer so I could come. I got there. Now I had been to the Human Rights Foundation Oslo Freedom Forum the summer before, and I saw Bitcoin presented in an entirely new manner. I think this is when I really discovered it. I learned about it in high school, but I think I discovered it much more so that summer. And I was sitting on the plane coming back from Oslo and just thought, okay, I have to study this. College is about thinking about how the world will change or what will be different, becoming better at asking questions. I had taken a class on creativity in my spring semester before, and that really shaped a lot of my later decisions. And so I got there, went to campus activities, and said, hey, I really want to start a Bitcoin club. And they said, we have 1,000+ clubs. It would really be better if you could, join one that's similar in nature. And also, you need to have 10 people with you and a faculty advisor. And I said, you know what? Okay, that makes sense. I don't know 10 people yet. I will join the blockchain club, which is very well established. And then kind of a year and a half later passed, and I felt kind of the only Bitcoiner in that club. Um, And I said, you know what, Ella, you know way more than 10 people now. You can start this club. And so I did. And now we're up to about 130 members. So it's, that's the big thing. You just create the space for people to have a conversation, and people come and you kind of build a community around it. One of the kind of biggest supporters I had with the club, his name is Sal Pineda. He just graduated as well from the MBA program at Cornell. But I had met him because I did a screening of Stranded, which is a precursor to Dirty Coin, if you've seen that Bitcoin mining documentary. And he came, he was the first person to ask a question. He goes, "Hi, I'm Sal from El Salvador." And so you just, little events, it's just when you bring people together and meet. And then later that spring semester, I started the club. And we have done a lot of variety of different things. So we've brought in kind of speakers. I think we had more than 20-ish speakers. Might have that wrong, but around that number over the 2 semesters that I led it. And then I transferred it over to a new group of students to lead while I was still there, to just make sure everyone felt comfortable, good, knew how it ran. And then our biggest project that we have done is with the Cornell Brooks Tech Policy Institute. We're doing the first ever Bitcoin Adoption Index study. And so, for some context, there have been crypto adoption studies done, largely by Chainalysis, for maybe 5, 6 years. But there's never been anything that looks at just Bitcoin. And so we received a grant from the Human Rights Foundation and the Reynolds Foundation to do this study. And so we're looking at 25 countries around the world, and it's 25,000 surveys, so quantitative data, and then about 250 interviews, qualitative data. And we have students from the Bitcoin Club that are doing those interviews. And so that has been a really nice project to have, especially early in the club's journey, to kind of help people understand the true case of what Bitcoin is doing for people around the world.
Yeah,
And
that's huge.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
when do the results come out?
So the results come out in May next year, 2026. But there are some presentations, recordings that have been done giving some initial data overview. I did a presentation at the Africa Bitcoin conference, and then our Professor Sarah Krebs, who is incredible, just did a presentation in Oslo at the Human Rights Foundation's Oslo Freedom Forum, and she's giving another one this week at the Bitcoin Policy Institute Summit. So some, data is coming out now, but it'll be done and all the data open source in May. And
Finally,
so we've, yeah,
yeah, a Bitcoin
yes,
only study. I mean, that's
yes,
and I mean it's so amazing. Alex Gladstein is really pretty big on pushing human
yeah,
rights and all that. I love that you managed to work with them on this,
yeah,
and that they were willing to help with this kind of stuff. And I'm really
yeah.
looking forward to hearing about the results. Please, I mean,
Thank you.
you're gonna plaster it all over, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll share it. Yeah, we'll share it. So that's been great. And then the Cornell Club also served as a guinea pig for a larger nonprofit that I started called the Bitcoin Students Network with my co-founder, Arsh Malu. And so it was kind of the guinea pig of how do you do this? Because another kind of element of my story when I got to Cornell is that I really wanted to study Bitcoin. And so I started down the independent major track proposal to study it. And it took 15 months, and then I did ultimately get it approved in a different program. But I just felt like this is so important for young people to be understanding, talking about Bitcoin, at least aware that this conversation is going on. And often you look to a school to say, what do I study? What is valuable for me to learn? But really much more in line with Bitcoin ethos is this kind of grassroots, bottom-up approach. And so the Bitcoin Students Network just let's help people kind of start a club, start having these conversations on their campuses. And so that also spurred out of the Cornell Bitcoin Club.
Wow, quite the initiative from something so small, starting off with 10 people. Look at where it is right now. That's amazing. Good on you. So you mentioned Oslo, and you
Mhm.
mentioned that's kind of where it triggered something in you. Would you say, correct me if I'm mistaken, because I want to know your Bitcoin aha moment. Was it,
Mhm.
would you say, anchored in the censorship resistant nature of Bitcoin, or was it a monetary component? I'm just curious. I'd love to know.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggle with this question. I'll just put it out there because they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to pinpoint a point in time where, like, oh,
Mhm.
that aha moment, but I'd like you to take a shot at it.
Yes, so when I was really little, maybe five or so, my mom had this fear that she would pass away before I grew up. And there was a lot of things that she wanted to tell me. And so she started this note, which now has become a shared note on our phones, called the Good Life Guide. And
Wow.
it's this document of maybe like, I don't know if we're up to 200 different nuggets of wisdom, as she calls them, that she collects from, people that she hears and she thinks it's really wise and she writes it down, or things that she has come up with. And so the first rule, or kind of nugget on this list, is be a good human and kind of be of service. And so when I was sitting in the concert hall, where the conference is held in Oslo, over those couple days, and really just understanding my financial privilege, to take Alex Gladstein's term, and how much money is used or just to control, repress people if you don't have property rights, how that opens up so much exploitation and repression onto you. I think for me, and again, I had just, started my first year of college, really thinking about what do I want to do in life, with the AI ethics background of, how are we looking after people, individuals. I felt like, okay, Bitcoin is this tool that we have for all 8 billion people, anywhere, anytime, that 365 days a year, 24/7, it's looking after them. It is kind of a tool of service to them. And so I just felt, okay, I don't know exactly what I want to do with my life, but I think Bitcoin represents my values and how I can just live out being a good human and of service. And so this is where I want to put my time and energy, as Jeff Booth says in his book, and in all of his, speaking that he does. And so for me, it was just like, okay, this I feel is the greatest alignment of my humanity. And so I think that was more my aha moment.
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that story. A lot of people say Bitcoin changes them. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
that camp. It seems on your side you found something that actually aligns with your core values, and
Mm-hmm.
I love your mother's nuggets and that little notepad. I'm assuming she's played a big part in your life. Is she a Bitcoiner?
She is, yeah. We
That makes
actually,
total
people always,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, people ask, oh, did your mom kind of make you a Bitcoin, or how did that work? And we basically did it on our own, kind of parallel tracks at the same time. And then it's really nice to be going through this process with someone else and have these conversations and send podcasts back and forth and talk about it. And also for me, because nowhere in school do they teach you about what is money, many of these conversations that Bitcoin opens up for you. And my mom did have a greater understanding of all of that, and so I think that definitely helped me connect the dots faster, because I had this conversation partner who's also my mom that I could talk to and learn about all this with.
That's amazing, and I can only imagine how cool it is to be sitting at home with your mom and talking about Bitcoin and what they
Hmm.
did, what's happening. So yeah, that's amazing. That's so rare, and it's really nice to see. I mean, so we talked about your past. We talked about kind of your aha moment. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. So, and you mentioned how college doesn't teach you anything about money. I mean, I went to college. I have a master's degree. I went to college. I did banking and finance, and then I got a master's degree in finance. I began my
Mhm.
journey to pursue the CFA. I got to level one, and I was already in Bitcoin. And I'm like, why am I studying all this? Like, it's
Mhm.
funny. As a finance graduate, no one ever explained to me what money was. I would get
Mhm.
it like if you're in a different major, they're just going to teach you economics. They're not going to go to, the building blocks of
Yeah.
finance, which is money. But even as a finance major with a master's degree, no one ever talks about money, nor do they ever mention that there are different schools of economics, right?
Yeah.
So you said college teaches us a lot about the past, but not enough about the future.
Mhm.
Maybe you can elaborate on that. What type of future are we talking about? What does that look like? Do we need a full college overhaul on the curriculum? So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I really like words, language. I actually ended up writing my thesis about Bitcoin as a language. And so if you look up like the etymology of the word education, there are sort of two ways the definition can come into play, or the history of the word. One of it sort of being just like a vessel that you just pour knowledge into over and over again, which I think is what we have today. We're just, these are the books, this is what is done, let's just keep transferring this and this. And the second actually relates a lot to a quote that is above a set of stairs when you walk into the college that I was at Cornell. And it's about the awakening of a human being, really like having fireworks go off in their head and all of these sparks, and truly finding, I think, more of a passion or curiosity, an exploration of the unknown. But that is so much harder to scale. Um, within a college, this awakening of each person, when you have thousands of people there, I think it's the scalable model is this transfer of what is known and what is done. And in some fields that works, like maybe math or engineering, there is a way things are done. And, you learn those building blocks to then maybe figure out something else new. But when I was transferring colleges, I mentioned I had just taken this class on creativity. And I took it because it fit. I had room, um, and I they opened the class and they said, okay, you're all probably here because you don't think you're creative. And what we're going to show you is that there's many ways of being creative. And what you're going to do is you're all going to choose a creator to study over the course of the semester and apply the concepts to that person. And along the way, we're going to also show you how you are creative and how you can grow your creativity. It's not just this on off switch. And so the creator that I chose was Kathy Wood. And, she talks a lot about creative destruction and disruptive innovation and thinking about innovation and how the world is going to change. And so, kind of her creative identity that I analyze through is kind of creativity through combination. And so I had never thought about that before. Um, and one of the closing remarks in my graduation ceremony for this college scholar major, which is where I did the Bitcoin study, our professor was talking about how college is really good at breaking apart disciplines, and we're really bad about bringing them together and seeing different ways to combine and innovate through that. And actually, the whole point of this college scholar major is that there's some question that you can't answer in any other field, and you basically have access to all of the majors, all of the classes, and go answer your question. And so there's sort of two dilemmas or problems, I guess, I see with how education is traditionally structured, in that we are really good at taking apart and not putting back together. And this idea of, are we trying to awaken a person to think for themselves, or just share, what is already known because it's easier. Um, and, also another reality that is, I guess, working against this awakening or truly finding what you're interested in, or, what your real why is. Like, why do you want to wake up each day? Is that it's jobs and internships. So when I got to Cornell transferring, I had to recruit for that summer internship and then the internship, ideally after your junior year of college. So 2 summers away.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I think people, at least especially in the West, that's, I guess, more so what I can speak to. You get to school and it's, quick to, okay, I've got to join this consulting or banking club. And at Cornell, people joke those are harder to get into than the school itself.
Mm.
Um, oh, I've got to, do this so that I can, get that internship, which is 2 summers away. I feel like we don't have a structure to allow for more of an exploration. What do I really want to do? Um, and yeah, so to wrap up on the creativity class, one of the quotes they left us with was that knowledge is a big subject, but ignorance is bigger. And a gift that I think Bitcoin has given me is an ability to embrace ignorance or be, ignorant, or really try to seek out the unknown, ask questions, think differently. And I wish more students and people had that opportunity to just, spend their time in college really trying to think and ask questions. And that's something that I think the University of Austin in Texas, it's a new college, they just graduated their first class, has done a nice job of trying to do for students.
Yeah, I love how you put it that way, the thinking for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a problem with incentives personally,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, everyone's worried about when they're done with college, how do I put, how do I get comfortable financially?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And everyone knows that certain fields will pay more than other
yeah.
fields. And it's like you don't have time to explore. You need to get things done. You need to follow the curriculum to the letter, get the grades, join the clubs, do the internships, because that's what we've been taught. And
Mm-hmm.
I went through that as well. And when I studied Bitcoin, and I studied it extensively when I had a full-time
Mm-hmm.
job in banking and asset management, uh, I enjoyed for the first time sitting down and actually studying something and just going down one rabbit hole. I found myself studying about energy production, how things work,
Yeah.
without even thinking about it. It was like, I need to know this. Like, I need to get to the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of this Bitcoin rabbit hole. And it's really fascinating. It was probably the most satisfying intellectual exercise I've ever done in my life. And I have a
Mm-hmm.
bachelor's, I have a master's, I started the CFA, and all of that felt like I had to do it versus, I found pleasure in learning.
Yeah. Yeah, you get
It,
to do it.
yeah, and I think this problem is more pronounced these days, especially for Generation Z, because
Mm-hmm.
they see life after college with, housing unaffordability, a lot of issues with finding good jobs, extremely competitive. The requirements now have changed dramatically when you're looking for a job. It's like they want you to be both a graphic designer, a content marketer, a financial analyst, a
Mm-hmm.
web developer, all at the same time at a very low wage. And in the
Mm-hmm.
past, it was very different. Any thoughts on that? Because you went through that. You went through that mental exercise. You have friends that are going through that right now. How does the world look like for someone that's from Generation Z about to graduate college? I'm curious to learn about that because that's a long time for me.
Yeah, so last summer when I was at Galaxy, I did a rotation on their asset management team, and I got to write a report about Bitcoin and why wealth managers should learn about Bitcoin because their clients, like young people, are going to be asking them about it and looking at it Um, it was kind of in conjunction with a prior report Galaxy had done about the great wealth transfer and how much wealth is transferring to millennials and Generation Z by like 2045. And so I was just reading every report I could find from like EY, Deloitte, um, Intuit, Coinbase, Transamerica. It was like all of these reports, and I've shared them all online as well. If people are curious about, what does Gen Z think? What do they care about? What are their fears? What are their concerns? And through all of this study and research, the statistics are just um, incredibly concerning. 6% of Gen Z thinks the current financial system works for them. The highest concern is about the economy and taking care of themselves. Many don't think retirement is achievable, so they're just not even thinking about it, not even thinking about saving. Many people now don't want to set long term goals because the economy just makes them too hesitant. And, that is not the future that we want for young people when you're at the beginning of your career. You have your whole life ahead of you. You should be excited, optimistic, like, what's out there for me to do? And that's not the reality at all. And so in April, I gave a TEDx talk at Cornell, and it's not out yet, unfortunately. But this is something you were saying earlier made me think of it because the title was "In Yourself You Trust." I told the story of the Ithaca Hour, which was a time-based local currency in Ithaca, where Cornell is, so it just centered the story. And on that currency, it was written, "In Ithaca we trust." The dollar, it's written, "In God we trust." And I wanted the larger message to be, don't outsource your agency, your ability to think for yourself. Place trust in yourself. You can figure it out. There is hope, and Bitcoin as this tool to kind of reclaim your agency. And so, yeah, the current system is pretty dismal for young people. But I remember I was sitting in the graduation field and feeling so grateful that I had found Bitcoin when I did so early in my life. I appreciate how you started the conversation about what was I thinking before Bitcoin, what was my path like, because I got to spend the majority of my college career thinking about what I wanted to think about and what I, wanted to study and felt energized by studying. And that is my wish for, so many other young people around the world. I was just in Kenya, and the majority of their population is young people, Gen Z. And actually, the 25th, maybe today, right now for them, we're recording on the 24th, is the 1 year anniversary of the finance bill. This time, last year, it was really Gen Z that arose in peaceful protest about, this is not acceptable. And so I hope young people will continue to use their voice, just to advocate for themselves, and, not just place so much trust in others, really understand that you're young, but you do have a voice and you can make decisions.
Yeah, and I think even though this might be in a lot of eyes kind of like fantasy, but
Mm-hmm.
I personally really do think that Bitcoin solves a lot of Gen Z's problems, which is
Mm-hmm.
affordability, retirement, that they don't want to deal with until
Mm-hmm.
that happens. But if you just look at pricing of real estate in terms of Bitcoin, I mean, just looking at
Yeah.
that chart as a Gen Zer, you
Yeah.
should be like, okay, why am I saving in dollars? Why am I buying equities? I mean, it's the only
Mm-hmm.
asset that makes it seem like I can afford a property. In Canada,
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, it takes around 35 to 40 years now to afford a down payment on a house.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure
Rather than
it's.
solve the problem, the banking institution now have increased the amortization period to 80
Mm-hmm.
years. So basically, you're just paying interest, and basically, your children inherit the mortgage. Like it's no
Yeah.
longer a thing where you give your children a property that's paid off. It's like, no, you can take this along with all the debt that's still in it, and they might re-amortize it, and it's like this vicious debt cycle, and it's really tough. So
Yeah.
I hope people hear you out, people within your community, your age group, see how Bitcoin is providing hope, and that they learn from you and learn from others within the space. So that's amazing. I wanted to
Thank you.
ask you a question because I'm curious. So you love, it seems, AI and ethics on that front. Do you see Bitcoin and AI coming together? And if you do, what does that look like?
Yes, so this is an area that I'm starting to give more attention to. The person who I have really enjoyed speaking about this most, Drew Bansal, who is the co-founder of Unchained, I think it was 2022, 2023. He gave a talker panel at Bitcoin Miami, relating kind of Bitcoin as the metabolic currency of AI, plural AIs, so artificial intelligences. And he related it to like the Krebs cycle and a lot of biology that went a little over my head. But on the context of humans have the Bitcoin, not AIs. And so if as a digital currency, that's just much more in line with the natural language of AIs rather than dollars. You could implement ethics to it in effect of, okay, this acted how I want, I will pay in Bitcoin or not. But I will highlight, yeah, I think it was this weekend, a group organized the Bitcoin, I think, for AI conference. And so I'm very eager to watch those recordings, because I do think there will be alignment. And I have really enjoyed kind of seeing, feel like it was this year that a lot more has started to come out.
Yeah, especially at the start of the year with the crazy AI bonanza, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of it, in my opinion, is just overvaluations. And this is a good segue. We're getting close to the finish mark. Ella, I know we've taken a lot of your time today, and I really enjoyed our conversation. And good on you. I mean, you're so young yet so wise, and I really hope Gen Z listens to this or follows you and sees what you're doing, because it's really hopeful. And I feel bad for Gen Z because I have relatives who are in Gen Z, and I have to constantly try to, bring them up. And it's like, it's not the end of the world. There are solutions. You just gotta, like, don't give up. Basically, is the best
Mm-hmm.
advice you can tell someone that's struggling. But where can people find you? Where can people see what you're doing and all the interesting stuff that you've been working on?
Oh, thank you. Twitter's probably the best place. It's just 21mm for the 21st. And then I have my link tree there with, I've mentioned some open source documents. All the different involvements are all linked on that. So that'll be the most efficient place.
Amazing. We'll make sure to share that and to tag you once this episode goes out. Thank you so much, Ella. It was really, really a pleasure to meet you today, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, Ralph. I really appreciate you having me.